Welcome to my channel. Try to hear the latest story.
My phone buzzed at exactly 11:47 on a Tuesday night, pulling me away from reviewing quarterly projections for TechFlow Solutions. The caller ID showed a number I hadn't seen in 12 years, but I recognized it instantly. My mother's voice cracked through the speaker, raw with desperation I'd never heard before. She was sobbing, begging me to come home, because the family was losing everything. My father was dying of cancer. My golden child sister Emma had gambled away their inheritance, and they were facing bankruptcy. As I listened to her frantic pleas for help, one memory crystallized with perfect clarity. I was 16 again, standing in our kitchen, while my father looked me dead in the eye and declared that my sister had potential. But I didn't write before my mother announced they were shipping me off to military boarding school. Growing up in the sprawling suburbs of Littleton, Colorado, I learned early that being the middle child meant being invisible. Our two-story colonial sat on Maple Avenue, complete with the white picket fence and manicured lawn that screamed upper-middle-class respectability. My father, Robert, owned Denver Ridge Construction, a company he'd built from nothing after dropping out of college to support his young family. My mother, Patricia, worked part-time, selling houses for Coldwell Banker, mostly to wealthy transplants fleeing California taxes. Between my older brother, Jake, and younger sister, Emma, I occupied the forgotten middle ground where achievements went unnoticed and mistakes were magnified. Emma arrived when I was 3, and from her first breath, she commanded every room she entered. She got the corner bedroom with bay windows overlooking the garden, while I shared a cramped space with Jake until he left for college. Her dance lessons cost $200 monthly, her violin instructor charged $150 per session, and her math tutor received $75 weekly to help her maintain a barely passing grade. Meanwhile, I taught myself calculus using library books and fixed neighbors' computers for $20 each, saving every penny in a coffee can hidden beneath my bed. The disparity became impossible to ignore during my sophomore year at Columbine High School. I'd always excelled in mathematics and science, finding patterns and solutions that seemed obvious to me, but mystified my classmates. When standardized test scores arrived that spring, I'd scored in the 99th percentile across all subjects. Emma's results placed her in the 40th percentile for math and 50th for reading. That evening at dinner, my father studied both report cards with the intensity of a judge reviewing evidence. "Barrett tries too hard," he announced, setting my perfect scores aside without comment. "Emma's numbers show she's well-rounded, not obsessed with proving herself like some people." My mother nodded approvingly while cutting Emma's steak into bite-sized pieces, though my sister was 15 years old. "Emotional intelligence matters more than test scores," Patricia added, smiling at Emma. "You can't measure heart and creativity with numbers." Junior year brought the SATs, and I prepared obsessively. I borrowed prep books from the library, took practice tests until I could recite question patterns, and spent weekends in coffee shops drilling vocabulary words. The morning of the test, Emma complained about having to wake up early to drive me to the testing center because she wanted to sleep in before cheerleading practice. My parents agreed she shouldn't be inconvenienced, so I took 2 buses and walked 3 miles to reach the school on time. 6 weeks later, the envelope arrived. Perfect 1600. Mathematics 800, verbal 800. I stared at those numbers, feeling something between pride and disbelief. This was my ticket to MIT, to a future where my abilities mattered more than my position in the family hierarchy. I brought the scores to my father's home office, where he sat reviewing construction blueprints under the warm glow of his desk lamp. "Dad, I got my SAT results." He glanced up briefly, then returned to his papers. "That's nice, son." "I scored 1600, perfect score." Robert's pen stopped moving. He looked at the paper, then at me, then back at the paper. "Well, that's something. MIT sent an acceptance letter with a partial scholarship. I can study engineering, maybe work in your company someday, help modernize the systems." My father leaned back in his leather chair, the one Emma had picked out for his birthday because it matched her favorite color. "Barrett, sit down. We need to talk." The conversation that followed carved itself into my memory with surgical precision. My father explained that success required more than academic achievement. Emma possessed qualities I lacked: charisma, social intelligence, natural leadership ability. She could charm clients, build relationships, inspire loyalty. I was merely good at memorizing information and regurgitating it during tests. "Your sister has real potential," he said, his voice carrying the weight of absolute conviction. "You don't. You're smart enough, sure, but being book smart doesn't translate to real-world success. Emma understands people. She knows how to connect, how to make others feel special. That's worth more than any test score." Before I could respond, my mother appeared in the doorway. She'd been listening, probably planning her entrance for maximum impact. Patricia moved to stand behind my father's chair, her manicured hand resting on his shoulder in a display of unified authority. "We've decided to send you to Riverside Military Academy in Virginia," she announced with the casual tone she used to discuss dinner plans. "The structure will be good for you. You need discipline, focus. And frankly, Emma needs space to develop her gifts without feeling overshadowed by your academic intensity. Boarding school will keep you out of her way," my father added, already returning his attention to the blueprints. "It's what's best for everyone." I felt the floor shifting beneath me. Reality rearranging itself into something unrecognizable. They were sending me away. Not because I'd done anything wrong, but because my presence somehow diminished Emma's shine. My perfect SAT scores, my acceptance to MIT, my dreams of engineering success, none of it mattered. I was the problem that needed solving. "What about college? The scholarship only covers half the tuition." My mother waved dismissively. "You're resourceful. You'll figure something out. Military Academy graduates are excellent at finding solutions." That's when I discovered the cruelest twist of all. 3 days later, while helping Emma move furniture in her room, I found the bank statements she'd carelessly left on her dresser. My college fund, the $20,000 my grandfather had specifically designated for my education in his will, had been withdrawn completely. The deposit date matched perfectly with Emma's gleaming new BMW sitting in our driveway, the car my parents bought to celebrate her maintaining a B- average. Emma had spent my future on leather seats and a sunroof, and my parents had handed her the keys with pride. Riverside Military Academy, squatted like a fortress of red brick and disappointment among the rolling hills of Rappahannock County, Virginia. The September morning my parents dropped me off, Emma stayed home claiming stomach flu, though I'd seen her posting Instagram stories about shopping with friends. An hour after they left, my mother hugged me briefly at the entrance, her perfume overwhelming in the humid air, while my father shook my hand with the formality reserved for business acquaintances. "Remember what we discussed?" Robert said, straightening his tie. "This is your chance to develop some character." They drove away without looking back, leaving me standing beside 2 duffel bags and a footlocker containing everything I owned. The administrative building loomed ahead, its clock tower marking 3:15 on what felt like the first day of exile. My roommate Marcus Rivera arrived from Chicago carrying only a backpack and an attitude sharp enough to cut glass. His parents had shipped him east after a drug arrest that cost his father a promotion at the law firm where he worked as a partner. Marcus wore his bitterness like armor, deflecting questions with sarcasm and treating authority figures with barely concealed contempt. "What's your story?" he asked while unpacking his meager belongings in our cramped dormitory room. "Daddy issues, mommy problems? Or did you just screw up so badly they gave up hope?" "Something like that," I replied, arranging my textbooks on the metal shelf above my narrow bed. The first month nearly broke me. Reveille at 5:30, inspections at 6:15, breakfast formation at 7 sharp. Everything operated with military precision that left no room for individual preferences or personal comfort. Sergeant Williams, a former Army engineer who supervised our academic unit, noticed my struggles during the 3rd week, when I'd barely spoken to anyone beyond mandatory responses. You homesick, son? He asked after finding me alone in the library reading about electrical engineering principles while other cadets played video games in the recreation room. One, not exactly, I admitted, unsure how to explain that home felt more like a place I'd never belonged than somewhere I missed. Sergeant Williams studied me with eyes that had seen too much and understood more than he revealed. Sometimes the best thing that happens to us feels like the worst thing at the time. You might discover something here you never would have found back home. He was right, though it took months to realize it. Under his guidance, I began tutoring struggling students in mathematics and science, discovering I possessed a natural ability to explain complex concepts in simple terms. When the computer lab's ancient machines constantly crashed, I taught myself basic repair techniques and soon had them running better than they had in years. My squad, initially skeptical of the quiet kid from Colorado, began seeking my help with everything from homework to personal problems. Marcus became my first real friend, someone who understood what it felt like to be discarded by the people who should have believed in you most. He'd grown up in Lincoln Park watching his lawyer father work 80-hour weeks to afford their lifestyle, while his socialite mother attended charity galas and complained about having to parent her own son. The drug arrest had been his way of demanding attention, but instead of concern, he'd received exile. "At least your parents were honest about not wanting you around," Marcus said one November evening as we studied together in our room. Mine pretended it was about helping me, while they planned their trial separation without a troublesome teenager complicating their divorce proceedings. Christmas break arrived with an invitation to return home for 2 weeks. I took the Greyhound bus from Richmond to Denver, a 30-hour journey that gave me plenty of time to imagine how different things might be. Maybe my parents had missed me. Perhaps Emma had realized how my absence affected the family dynamic. I pictured heartfelt conversations, acknowledgement of their mistakes, recognition of my worth. Reality crushed those fantasies within hours of walking through our front door. Emma had transformed my former bedroom into her personal art studio, covering the walls with abstract paintings that looked like someone had sneezed colorful paint across canvas. My belongings sat in cardboard boxes in the basement labeled Barrett's Old Stuff, in my mother's precise handwriting. When I asked about retrieving some of my books, Patricia suggested I focus on moving forward instead of dwelling on the past. Dinner conversations revolved entirely around Emma's latest endeavors. She joined the drama club and earned the lead role in the spring musical through what she described as natural talent and dedication, though I later learned only 5 girls had auditioned. Her grades had improved slightly enough for my parents to consider hiring a college consultant to help her find the right fit for her unique learning style. "Emma doesn't test well," my father explained while carving the Christmas ham, "but she's got emotional intelligence that can't be measured with standardized assessments. She connects with people on a deeper level than most teenagers." I watched Emma scroll through her phone during this speech, ignoring the conversation entirely while posting selfies with captions about being blessed to have such supportive parents. When I tried to share stories about my academic improvements at Riverside or my leadership role in the tutoring program, the topic somehow shifted back to Emma's achievements within minutes. The breaking point came on December 28th when I offered to help Emma with her algebra homework. She was struggling with basic quadratic equations, the kind of problems I could solve in my sleep, and her frustration was building toward one of her legendary meltdowns. "Here, let me show you a shortcut," I said, reaching for her pencil. "Don't touch my work," Emma snapped, pulling the paper away. "I don't need help from someone who couldn't even stay in regular school." Before I could respond, my mother appeared from the kitchen, her expression sharp with annoyance. "Barrett, leave your sister alone. Emma doesn't need fixing from someone who couldn't handle high school without being sent away. She'll figure it out her own way." That night, unable to sleep in the basement guest room that smelled of mothballs and forgotten Christmas decorations, I heard voices carrying through the heating vents. My parents were in their bedroom discussing Emma's college prospects and the financial challenges ahead. Maybe we should have kept Barrett home, my father said, his voice muffled but clear enough. The military school is costing us $15,000 per year. Robert, we talked about this, my mother replied firmly. Having him around makes Emma feel stupid. You see how he takes over every conversation with his test scores and achievements? She needs confidence, not comparison. I know, but the kid did get into MIT. That's not nothing. Emma will find her path. She's creative, artistic, intuitive. Those qualities matter more than academic performance. Barrett's just a grind who memorizes information. Emma actually understands life. I pressed my ear closer to the vent, feeling sick, but unable to stop listening. Sometimes I wonder if we made a mistake, Robert continued. Barrett never caused trouble, never asked for anything, always did what was expected. Maybe we judged him too harshly. Don't second-guess ourselves now, Patricia said with finality. Emma needs to develop her own identity without Barrett's shadow hanging over everything. We're protecting her self-esteem. That's what good parents do. The conversation revealed the devastating truth. They hadn't sent me away to help me develop character. They'd exiled me because my existence somehow threatened Emma's fragile confidence. My achievements didn't matter. My potential was irrelevant. My dreams were obstacles to my sister's comfort. I was the sacrifice they'd made to preserve Emma's delicate ego. I returned to Riverside 2 days early, claiming I wanted extra time to prepare for the spring semester. Really, I needed distance from the suffocating realization that home would never be a place where I belonged. The final 18 months at Riverside passed in a blur of academic excellence and growing independence. I threw myself into every available opportunity, leading study groups, organizing academic competitions, and earning the respect of both faculty and fellow cadets. Sergeant Williams became more than a mentor. He became the father figure who actually noticed my potential and encouraged its development. You've got something special, Barrett, he told me during one of our weekly check-ins. Not just intelligence, but the ability to inspire others to excel. That's leadership, son. Real leadership. Graduation arrived with honors I'd never dreamed possible. Valedictorian Outstanding Cadet Leadership Award, perfect attendance. I stood at the podium addressing my class, speaking about resilience and self-determination while scanning the audience for faces I knew wouldn't be there. My parents had chosen to attend Emma's spring musical, instead claiming they couldn't afford to take time off for both events. Marcus graduated third in our class and planned to attend Northwestern on a debate scholarship. Before we parted ways, he pulled me aside in the parking lot, where other families celebrated their sons' achievements. Promise me something? He said, his usual sarcasm replaced by genuine emotion. Don't let them win. Don't let their small thinking limit what you become. You're going to do incredible things, but only if you stop waiting for their approval. With no family support, I spent my gap year in Richmond working 3 jobs to save money for MIT. Construction work during the day, utilizing skills I'd absorbed from years of watching my father's crews. The irony wasn't lost on me that Robert's dismissive attitude toward my potential hadn't stopped me from learning his trade. Tutoring wealthy kids in mathematics during afternoons and evenings, charging $50 per session, and building a client list through word-of-mouth recommendations. Night shifts at a computer repair shop, fixing everything from crashed hard drives to virus-infected systems. I lived in a studio apartment near Virginia Commonwealth University, sharing the building with graduate students and young professionals who became my first real peer group outside military academy. My neighbors were pursuing careers in medicine, law, engineering, and business, all working multiple jobs to fund their dreams. For the first time, I felt normal, surrounded by people who valued education and ambition instead of treating them as character flaws. The computer repair shop proved especially valuable because it connected me with Richmond's growing tech community. Small business owners brought their systems to me when other shops charged too much or took too long. I developed a reputation for honest pricing and reliable service, often fixing problems that supposedly required expensive replacements. By August, I'd saved $18,000, enough to cover my MIT expenses for the first year. The acceptance letter had arrived in March along with increased financial aid based on my military academy performance. Everything was falling into place through my own effort and determination. That's when I made the mistake of hoping my family might finally recognize my achievements. I called home on a Thursday evening in late July after receiving my final financial aid package. Emma answered, sounding distracted and slightly annoyed. "Oh, it's you," she said when I identified myself. "Mom, Barrett's on the phone." "Barrett, honey, how are you?" My mother's voice carried forced cheerfulness, the tone she used with distant relatives she felt obligated to contact. "I'm doing well. I wanted to update everyone about college. MIT increased my financial aid, and I've saved enough to cover the remaining costs. I start in September." "That's wonderful, dear. Emma just got accepted to Colorado State's art program. We're so proud of her creative development." I bit back the observation that Colorado State had a 91% acceptance rate, and that Emma's art program was essentially remedial courses disguised as creative expression. "Actually, I'm calling because my roommate and I have been developing some software that could revolutionize project management. We're looking for investors to help us launch a startup after graduation." This caught my mother's attention. "What kind of software?" I explained the concept. We'd been developing a comprehensive system that would integrate scheduling, budgeting, communication, and progress tracking for construction projects. The idea had grown from my experience, wisely watching my father's company struggle with organization and efficiency. Our software could save construction companies hundreds of thousands of dollars annually while improving project completion times. "We need about $50,000 in seed funding to develop a working prototype and establish the business," I continued. "I know it sounds like a lot, but the potential return on investment could be enormous. Dad's industry knowledge combined with our technical skills could create something incredible." Silence stretched across the connection for several seconds. "Barrett," my mother said finally, "you know we can't help with something like that. We've already invested so much in your education. Military academy wasn't cheap. But this could benefit Dad's business directly. Construction companies are desperate for better management tools. Your father doesn't need computer programs to run his business. He's been successful for 25 years without technology gimmicks. And honestly, Barrett, this sounds like another one of your schemes to prove yourself. You need to focus on realistic goals instead of these grandiose fantasies." The conversation ended 5 minutes later with polite promises to stay in touch and vague suggestions that I should visit during Christmas break. I hung up feeling foolish for expecting anything different. 3 days later, Emma posted Instagram photos from the BMW dealership, where my parents had just purchased her a graduation gift, a brand new convertible worth $40,000. The caption read, "So blessed to have parents who believe in celebrating success. Time to drive toward my artistic dreams." My $50,000 business proposal had been dismissed as unrealistic fantasy. Emma's $40,000 car was a celebration of completing high school with a 2.7 GPA. That night, I deleted my family's phone numbers from my contacts and began planning a future that would prove their judgment catastrophically wrong. MIT welcomed me like a puzzle piece, finally finding its proper place. The campus buzzed with intellectual energy that made my high school years feel like a preview for real life. My roommate David Chen arrived from Palo Alto carrying 2 laptops, 3 hard drives, and coding skills that made my self-taught programming look elementary. Within weeks, we'd discovered a synergy that would define both our futures. David possessed pure technical genius, but struggled with business concepts and interpersonal communication. I understood system strategy and how to translate complex ideas into language that investors and clients could understand. While he wrote elegant code that solved impossible problems, I developed business plans that explained why those solutions mattered. Our project management software concept evolved during long nights in the computer lab, fueled by energy drinks and determination to create something revolutionary. David built the technical framework while I researched market demands and competitor analysis. Construction companies across New England operated using methods that hadn't changed since the 1970s: paper schedules, manual tracking communication through phone calls, and fax documents. The breakthrough came during our sophomore year when I convinced Professor Martinez to let us present our software to his advanced business systems class. The demonstration lasted 20 minutes, showing how our platform could reduce project completion times by 15% while cutting administrative costs by 30%. After class, Professor Martinez pulled us aside. "You need to patent this immediately and start talking to investors," he said. "This isn't a class project anymore. This is a business." We incorporated TechFlow Solutions on a Thursday afternoon in March, splitting ownership 50-50 and establishing our headquarters in David's dorm room. Our first client came through an unexpected connection. My construction experience from the gap year had taught me which companies struggled most with project coordination. Beacon Construction, a mid-sized firm in Somerville, agreed to trial our software on a residential development project. The owner, Frank Rossetti, had grown frustrated with cost overruns and scheduling conflicts that seemed to plague every job his company undertook. "I'll try anything once, Frank told us during our initial meeting. "But I don't have patience for complicated computer programs that require PhD degrees to operate." David and I spent 2 weeks customizing our software to match Beacon's specific needs, then provided on-site training for their project managers. The results exceeded our most optimistic projections. The residential development finished 3 weeks ahead of schedule and 12% under budget, primarily due to improved coordination between subcontractors and suppliers. Frank became our biggest advocate, recommending TechFlow to other construction companies throughout Massachusetts. Word spread through industry networks about the young MIT students whose software actually delivered on its promises. Our client list grew to include firms in Boston, Cambridge, Springfield, and Worcester. By junior year, TechFlow Solutions had moved from David's dorm room to a shared office space in Kendall Square. We hired our first employee, Jennifer Walsh, a recent MBA graduate who handled client relations while David and I focused on product development. Revenue reached 6 figures annually, and venture capital firms began expressing interest in our expansion plans. The transformation felt surreal sometimes. I was 21 years old, running a growing technology company while completing my engineering degree summa cum laude. During breaks between classes, I negotiated contracts with construction executives who had decades more experience than I possessed, yet they respected our software's results and my ability to understand their business challenges in ways that typical tech entrepreneurs couldn't grasp. Success brought unexpected personal growth as well. Sarah Mitchell, a brilliant computer science major from California, joined our coding team during her senior year internship. She possessed technical skills that complemented David's programming genius, plus a strategic mind that challenged my business assumptions in productive ways. Our professional collaboration gradually evolved into something deeper, built on mutual respect and shared ambitions, rather than the superficial attractions that characterized most college relationships. "You're different from other guys," Sarah told me one evening as we walked along the Charles River after debugging a particularly complex software module. "You actually listen when I talk about technical problems, instead of assuming I need things explained in simple terms." Romance had never been a priority during my years of academic focus and family rejection. Sarah changed that perspective by demonstrating how partnership could enhance rather than distract from professional goals. She made me laugh during stressful moments and offered insights that improved both our software and my leadership approach. Meanwhile, my family remained completely absent from these achievements. I maintained zero contact with them throughout my MIT years, focusing entirely on building the future I'd envisioned since that devastating conversation in my father's office. Social media provided occasional glimpses into their lives. Emma had dropped out of Colorado State after 2 semesters, claiming the professors didn't understand her artistic vision. She'd briefly worked at a boutique clothing store then as a hostess at an upscale restaurant before settling into part-time employment at a local coffee shop, while pursuing what she described as influencer opportunities. Through LinkedIn, I discovered that several former classmates from Columbine High School had begun following my company's progress. Some reached out with congratulations and requests for networking opportunities. Others simply watched from a distance as the kid who'd been shipped away for lacking potential built something significant. The most satisfying moment came during senior year when TechFlow Solutions received recognition as Startup of the Year from the Massachusetts Technology Council. The award ceremony took place at the Boston Convention Center, attended by hundreds of industry leaders, investors, and entrepreneurs. As I stood at the podium accepting the award, I spoke about perseverance, innovation, and the importance of believing in yourself when others don't believe in you. Sarah sat in the front row beaming with pride, while David gave me an enthusiastic thumbs up from the audience. Professor Martinez attended with several MIT faculty members, all celebrating their students' achievements. The applause lasted nearly 2 minutes, and afterward, venture capital partners lined up to discuss expansion opportunities. Nobody from Colorado attended. Nobody from my family even knew the ceremony was happening. That night, lying in Sarah's apartment, after celebrating our success, I realized something profound had shifted in my relationship with the past. I no longer craved my family's acknowledgement or approval. Their rejection had forced me to develop independence, resilience, and self-reliance that made me stronger than I would have been with their support. Emma's golden child status had protected her from challenges that might have fostered growth, while my exile had created opportunities for transformation. I'd built everything without them, and it felt better than any validation they could have provided. TechFlow Solutions went public on a crisp October morning during my 26th year, transforming 5 years of relentless work into wealth that exceeded my wildest projections. The opening bell rang at 9:30 Eastern Time, and by market close, our stock had surged 40% above its initial offering price. David and I owned 68% of the company between us, making our combined net worth approximately $57 million overnight. The number felt abstract until my financial advisor explained what it meant in practical terms. I could buy any house I wanted, travel anywhere in the world, and never work another day if I chose to live modestly. More importantly, I possessed the resources to invest in other innovative startups and create opportunities for entrepreneurs who faced the same skepticism I'd encountered. Sarah and I married the following spring in a small ceremony at the MIT chapel, surrounded by close friends, business partners, and faculty members who'd supported our journey. Sergeant Williams flew up from Virginia to serve as my best man, representing the closest thing to family I'd experienced since leaving Colorado. The reception took place at a waterfront restaurant in Boston Harbor, where David delivered a toast that had everyone laughing about our early days of debugging code until 3 a.m. Okay, Barrett convinced me that business success required more than brilliant programming, David said, raising his glass. He taught me that revolutionary technology means nothing unless it solves real problems for real people. Sarah taught both of us that success tastes better when you share it with someone who challenges you to grow. My parents weren't invited. Neither was Emma. I'd made peace with their absence from my life, choosing to celebrate with people who'd actually contributed to my achievements instead of those who'd attempted to sabotage them. With newfound financial security, I began investing strategically in real estate technology startups and social causes that reflected my values. The Barrett Foundation, established in my 27th year, provided scholarships for students attending military academies who demonstrated academic excellence despite challenging family circumstances. Every year, we funded full college educations for 20 deserving young people whose families couldn't or wouldn't support their educational dreams. Marcus, now a successful corporate attorney in Chicago, served on the foundation's board of directors. During our quarterly meetings, he often reminded me how far we'd traveled from those difficult days at Riverside Military Academy. "Remember when you thought your life was over because your parents sent you away?" Marcus asked during one particularly productive board meeting. "Turns out they did you the biggest favor possible by forcing you to develop independence." The irony wasn't lost on me. My family's rejection had created the resilience and determination that built my empire. Their lack of faith had motivated me to prove them wrong on a scale that surpassed anything I could have achieved with their lukewarm support. Through private investigation services, I occasionally monitored my family's situation. The reports painted a picture of stagnation and mounting difficulties that contrasted sharply with my upward trajectory. My father's construction company, Denver Ridge Construction, struggled to compete with firms that had embraced modern technology and efficient project management systems. Robert continued operating with the same paper-based methods he'd used for 30 years, dismissing digital solutions as expensive complications that don't improve the fundamentals of building. Emma's influencer aspirations had evolved into a series of failed ventures. She'd launched an online boutique selling handmade jewelry that closed after 6 months due to poor sales and customer complaints about quality. A lifestyle blog promoting authentic living attracted 17 regular readers, most of whom were family friends obligated to show support. Her latest endeavor involved promoting wellness products through social media, earning approximately $200 monthly, while spending significantly more on the products she claimed to endorse. The most revealing discovery came through Marcus's legal connections in Denver. A colleague mentioned that Robert had been approaching competitors attempting to sell Denver Ridge Construction for far less than its actual value. The company owned valuable equipment and held contracts for several ongoing projects, but Robert's resistance to modernization had created operational inefficiencies that scared away potential buyers. "He's asking for 400,000 soins," Marcus's colleague reported. "The assets alone are worth twice that, but nobody wants to inherit his outdated systems and resistant workforce. Plus, there are rumors about financial irregularities that would require extensive auditing." More disturbing was the information about Emma's personal life. She'd married a bartender named Kyle Morrison after dating him for 3 months, then divorced him 8 months later when she discovered he'd been selling her possessions to fund his gambling addiction. The divorce proceedings revealed that Emma had accumulated significant credit card debt purchasing items for her various business ventures and lifestyle maintenance. My parents had been covering Emma's expenses since her divorce, draining their retirement savings to support her inability to maintain steady employment. Patricia had returned to full-time real estate work, despite being 61 years old, while Robert pushed himself to take on additional construction projects that stressed his aging body and increasingly obsolete business model. The most shocking revelation came through social media monitoring. My father had been secretly following my career progress through industry publications and LinkedIn updates. He regularly shared articles about tech flow solutions with his business associates, taking subtle credit for my achievements in ways that made my blood boil. My son Barrett learned construction from the ground up working with my crews, Robert would tell potential clients. Now he runs some computer company that helps contractors manage their projects. Smart kid, though, military school was expensive. Sometimes I wonder if he'd have been better off staying in the family business. The hypocrisy was staggering. The man who'd declared I lacked potential now bragged about my success to improve his own reputation while simultaneously undermining my achievements by suggesting I'd gotten lucky with computer nonsense. Meanwhile, Emma complained to anyone who would listen that I'd become too successful and selfish to help my own family, conveniently omitting the years of favoritism that had led to our estrangement. She painted herself as the victim of an ungrateful brother who'd abandoned his struggling relatives, despite having more money than any reasonable person needed. These discoveries crystallized my understanding of their true characters. They'd been willing to sacrifice my potential to preserve Emma's comfort, then attempted to claim credit for my success while criticizing me for not sharing the benefits with them. The depth of their delusion exceeded anything I could have imagined. Still, I felt no satisfaction in their struggles. Revenge required emotional investment that I'd moved beyond. I was building a life focused on positive creation rather than settling old scores. That perspective would be tested sooner than I expected. The call that shattered my carefully constructed peace came on a Tuesday morning in late September. I was reviewing acquisition proposals for TechFlow Solutions when my assistant Jennifer knocked on my office door with an expression of confused concern. "Barrett, there's someone named Marcus on the line. He says it's urgent and personal." Marcus rarely called during business hours, preferring email for routine communication and saving phone conversations for genuine emergencies. I picked up immediately, sensing something was wrong. "Marcus, what's going on?" "I need you to sit down," he said, his attorney voice, replacing the casual tone he typically used with me. "I have some information about your family that you need to hear, but it's going to be difficult." "Just tell me." "Your brother Jake was killed in Afghanistan 3 weeks ago. IED explosion during a convoy operation near Kandahar. I found out through my military law contacts when I saw his name on casualty reports." The words hit me like physical blows, each syllable carrying devastating weight. Jake was dead. My older brother, the one person in my family who'd occasionally shown me kindness during our childhood, had been killed in action while serving his country. And I was learning about it through my friend's professional network instead of from my own family. 3 weeks ago, I managed to ask. September 8th. Barrett, there's more. The funeral was held in Denver on September 15th. Your parents didn't inform you. According to the obituary, services were private and limited to immediate family only. I stared out my office window at the Boston skyline, trying to process the magnitude of this betrayal. My brother was dead buried and mourned without my knowledge. They deliberately excluded me from his final farewell. How many people attended? Marcus hesitated. I made some calls. 4 people. Your parents, Emma, and Jake's commanding officer who flew out to pay respects. That's it. Jake's military funeral had been attended by 4 people, including a stranger who'd showed more respect for my brother's service than his own family could manage to arrange. The image of that sparse gathering broke something inside me that I hadn't realized still existed. "There's something else," Marcus continued gently. "Jake tried to contact you multiple times over the past 2 years. He sent letters through military mail services and attempted to reach you through TechFlow Solutions' main number. Your parents intercepted the letters and told your company's receptionist that you'd specifically requested no contact from family members." The revelation staggered me. Jake had been trying to rebuild our relationship while I believed he'd chosen their side over mine. My parents had actively sabotaged our communication, ensuring I remained isolated from the one person who might have bridged the gap between us. What did he want? To apologize, according to his commanding officer. Apparently, Jake felt terrible about not defending you when your parents sent you away. He'd planned to work for TechFlow after completing his current deployment, wanted to help you expand into military contractor services. I hung up and immediately drove to Denver, making the trip in one straight shot despite Sarah's concerns about my emotional state. The cemetery was easy to find, though locating Jake's grave required assistance from the groundskeeper, an elderly man named Robert, who remembered the funeral clearly. "Saddest service I've seen in 40 years of working here," he told me while leading the way to Jake's headstone. 4 people for a war hero. His parents seemed more concerned with getting through the ceremony quickly than honoring their son's sacrifice. Jake's grave was marked with a simple military headstone: Jacob Michael Barrett, Sergeant, 1st Class, United States Army, beloved son and brother. Someone had left a small American flag beside the stone, probably placed by cemetery staff since it showed no signs of recent family visits. I knelt beside the grave and finally allowed myself to grieve not just for Jake's death, but for the relationship we'd never been able to repair. The tears came in waves, carrying years of suppressed emotion and regret that I hadn't tried harder to maintain contact despite our parents' manipulation. "I'm sorry, Jake," I whispered to the headstone. "I should have found a way to reach you. I should have known you were different from them." The groundskeeper gave me privacy for an hour, then approached with additional information that explained the sparse funeral attendance. "Your brother's unit wanted to send an honor guard for the service," he said. "Full military honors flag presentation the works. Your parents declined, said they wanted something simple and private. Broke protocol for a combat veteran, but families have the right to make those decisions." My parents had denied Jake the military honors he'd earned through his service and sacrifice. They'd turned his funeral into a rushed private affair that minimized his achievements and ensured minimal recognition for his ultimate sacrifice. That evening, I checked into a downtown Denver hotel and began my own investigation into my family's current situation. The results painted a picture of mounting desperation that had been carefully hidden from public view. Denver Ridge Construction teetered on the edge of bankruptcy. Robert had taken on several projects simultaneously to increase cash flow, but his outdated management methods had created cost overruns and scheduling conflicts that threatened to destroy his reputation. 3 major clients had initiated legal action demanding compensation for delayed completions and budget discrepancies. Emma's financial situation was even worse. The lifestyle blogger persona she projected on social media masked credit card debt exceeding $60,000 and a complete inability to maintain steady employment. She'd been evicted from 2 apartments in the past year, forcing her to move back into her childhood bedroom, while pursuing increasingly desperate schemes to achieve influencer status. Most shocking was the discovery that my parents had already spent Emma's remaining trust fund money, approximately $45,000, that my grandfather had designated specifically for her future security. They'd used the funds to cover business losses and Emma's debt payments, violating the legal terms of the trust and exposing themselves to potential fraud charges. The house on Maple Avenue, our family's symbol of middle-class stability, was scheduled for foreclosure within 60 days. My parents had borrowed against its equity multiple times to fund business operations, and Emma's expenses creating debt that exceeded the property's current market value. They were facing complete financial collapse. And according to conversations I overheard in Robert's regular bar, they'd been discussing ways to contact me without appearing desperate. The plan involved Patricia making an emotional appeal about family loyalty and Robert's declining health, hoping to manipulate my guilt into providing financial assistance. They deliberately excluded me from Jake's funeral while secretly planning to exploit my wealth for their benefit. The calculation was breathtaking in its selfishness. The phone call came at 11:47 on a Tuesday night, exactly as I'd known it would. My mother's number appeared on the caller ID, the same digits I'd deleted and memorized countless times over the past 12 years. I let it ring 4 times before answering, using those seconds to center myself for the conversation that would define how this story ended. Barrett. Patricia's voice cracked with desperation I'd never heard before, raw emotion that cut through years of careful composure. "Oh, thank God, I didn't know if this number still worked." "It works," I replied calmly, settling back in my chair while she sobbed into the phone. "We need you to come home. Your father is dying. Emma has made terrible mistakes, and we're going to lose everything. You're our last chance, honey. Our only hope." The irony was perfect. The son they'd declared worthless had become their salvation, while the daughter, with all the potential, had become their destruction. I let her cry for several minutes before responding. "Tell me exactly what's happening." The story poured out in fractured pieces. Robert had been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer 6 months earlier, stage 4, and inoperable. The medical bills, combined with his inability to work, had accelerated their business's collapse. Emma had developed a gambling addiction during her brief marriage, accumulating massive debt that she'd hidden by manipulating her parents' sympathy and trust fund access. She promised she could pay it back. Patricia sobbed. Said she had business opportunities that would make everything right. We believed her because we wanted to help, wanted to give her the support she needed to succeed. Denver Ridge Construction owed $400,000 to suppliers and subcontractors with 3 lawsuits pending for incomplete projects. The house faced foreclosure in 6 weeks. Emma's debt had reached $87,000 across multiple credit cards and personal loans. Robert's cancer treatment required experimental drugs not covered by insurance costing $12,000 monthly. "We've lost everything," my mother whispered. "Your father might not live to see Christmas. Emma can't function without constant help, and I don't know how to fix any of this. We were wrong about so many things, Barrett. We made mistakes, terrible mistakes. But you're still our son." I listened to her desperation with the detachment of someone observing a laboratory experiment. These were the people who'd declared I lacked potential, who'd sent me away to protect Emma's delicate self-esteem, who'd stolen my college fund to buy her a car. Now they needed the very qualities they'd dismissed: intelligence, determination, financial success, and leadership ability. "You want my help?" I said quietly. "Yes, please. We know we don't deserve it, but we're family. Family should forgive family. We can't lose your father without making things right between us. What makes you think I have the resources to solve problems this substantial?" Patricia hesitated, clearly uncomfortable, admitting they'd been monitoring my success. "We know about your company. We've seen articles about your achievements. You've done so well for yourself, honey. We're proud of you." The word proud hit like acid. They were proud of achievements they'd tried to prevent, success they'd declared impossible, potential they'd denied existed. "Are you proud of sending me away? We thought we were doing what was best for everyone. Military school gave you structure and discipline that helped you succeed. Maybe it worked out for the better." The revisionist history was breathtaking. They were reframing my exile as a gift, transforming their cruelty into wisdom that had somehow benefited me. "Are you proud of not telling me about Jake's death?" Silence stretched for 30 seconds. When Patricia spoke again, her voice was barely audible. "We didn't know how to reach you. You'd cut off all contact, changed your phone number. We thought you didn't want to be involved with family matters anymore. Marcus told me Jake tried to contact me multiple times. You intercepted his letters and blocked his calls to my company." Another long pause. "We were protecting you from distractions while you built your career. Jake understood that your focus needed to be on your business success. Even now, facing complete destruction, they couldn't admit the truth about their deliberate sabotage. They were rewriting every betrayal as a protective gesture, every cruelty as a difficult but necessary decision." "I'll come to Denver," I said finally. "But I have conditions." "Anything. We'll do anything you ask." First, Dad needs to acknowledge publicly that he was wrong about my potential, not just privately to me, but to everyone who heard him dismiss my abilities over the years. "Of course." Second, you need to explain to Emma exactly how your favoritism damaged both Jake and me. She needs to understand that her problems aren't just personal failures, but the result of being protected from consequences that might have helped her grow. We can do that. Third, all of you need to attend family therapy with a licensed counselor to address the toxic patterns that created this situation. Not just a few sessions, but sustained treatment that actually changes how you interact with each other. Yes, absolutely. And finally, you need to tell me about Jake. Everything. What he wanted to say, what he planned for his future, how he felt about our family's dysfunction. I want to understand who my brother became when I wasn't allowed to know him. Patricia agreed to every condition immediately, her desperation overriding any impulse to negotiate or resist. 3 days later, I flew to Denver and drove directly to the house where I'd grown up, steeling myself for confrontations that would either heal or permanently destroy what remained of our family bonds. The house looked smaller than I remembered, worn down by years of deferred maintenance and financial stress. Paint peeled from the front porch, the lawn was patchy and unkempt, and Emma's latest car sat in the driveway with a cracked windshield and expired registration tags. My father answered the door, and I barely recognized him. Cancer had reduced Robert to a shadow of his former presence, thin and gray, and moving with the careful deliberation of someone managing constant pain. But his eyes still carried the same stubborn pride that had defined our relationship. "Barrett," he said simply, "thank you for coming." The next 6 hours were brutal, but necessary. We sat in the living room where he'd once declared I lacked potential and methodically dissected every decision that had led to this moment. Robert admitted his jealousy of my natural abilities had influenced his treatment of me, though he struggled to acknowledge the depth of damage his favoritism had caused. "I wanted Emma to feel special," he said during one particularly difficult exchange. "You were so obviously gifted that her achievements seemed insignificant by comparison. I thought protecting her confidence was more important than challenging her to grow." Emma listened from the corner, crying silently, as the conversation revealed how thoroughly she'd been failed by parents who'd confused enabling with love. The gambling addiction had started as a way to prove she could succeed at something that didn't require academic or professional skills. The mounting debt had created panic that drove increasingly desperate attempts to recover losses. "I never wanted to hurt anyone," Emma sobbed. "I just wanted to feel like I was good at something, anything that would make you proud of me, the way you were proud of Barrett." The irony was devastating. My parents had spent years protecting Emma from the very challenges that might have helped her develop resilience and self-reliance. Their efforts to preserve her self-esteem had created a fragile, dependent adult who collapsed under pressure instead of rising to meet it. Patricia's role as enabler and manipulator proved the most difficult to address. She'd orchestrated many of the family's worst decisions while maintaining plausible deniability about their consequences. Her interception of Jake's letters represented a level of control and deception that shocked even me. "I thought I was protecting everyone," she insisted when confronted with the evidence. Barrett was building something important. Jake was serving his country. Emma needed support. I was trying to manage everyone's best interests. "You were playing God with other people's lives," I replied. "And your judgment was catastrophically wrong about what everyone actually needed." The therapy sessions that followed were even more intense, guided by Dr. Sarah Chen, a family counselor who specialized in addressing narcissistic family systems and enabling behaviors. Over the course of 6 months, we slowly began to understand how each person's actions had contributed to our collective dysfunction. Robert gradually acknowledged that his treatment of me had been shaped by his own insecurities about intelligence and success. He'd never attended college, building his business through physical labor and practical experience. My academic achievements represented the path he'd never taken, triggering fears that I would surpass him professionally and personally. Patricia recognized her pattern of manipulating family dynamics to maintain control and avoid conflict. Her favoritism toward Emma had been partly strategic, ensuring she remained the most important relationship in her daughter's life, while pushing away the son who might have challenged her influence. Emma faced the hardest journey, accepting that her problems stemmed not from external circumstances, but from internal patterns of entitlement and avoidance that had been reinforced for decades. She'd never learned to handle failure, disappointment, or personal responsibility because her parents had consistently removed those obstacles from her path. The financial rescue I provided came with strict conditions. I purchased Denver Ridge Construction for $600,000, implementing modern project management systems and training Robert's crew in digital tools that revolutionized their efficiency. The company became profitable again within 18 months, though Robert remained only as a consultant while professional managers handled daily operations. Emma's debt was paid in exchange for her commitment to sustained therapy financial counseling, and accepting an entry-level position at TechFlow Solutions' Denver office. She started in customer service, earning $32,000 annually while learning basic professional skills she'd never developed. No special treatment, no family favoritism, just the opportunity to build competence through effort rather than manipulation. Most importantly, I established the Jake Memorial Foundation for Military Families, providing support for service members' children, pursuing higher education, and assisting families dealing with combat-related trauma. Every year, the foundation honors Jake's memory by funding scholarships and mental health services that address the real-world challenges facing military communities. My father's cancer treatment continued for 2 more years before the disease finally claimed him. But those years allowed us to rebuild a relationship based on mutual respect rather than old resentments. He lived to see Emma graduate from TechFlow's management training program and earn her first promotion through merit rather than family connections. "I was wrong about your potential," Robert told me during one of our last conversations. "But more than that, I was wrong about what potential really means. It's not about natural gifts or inherited talents. It's about how you respond when life tests your character." He paused, managing the pain that had become his constant companion. "You passed tests I never imagined you'd face, and you did it without any help from us. That's not just potential, Barrett. That's strength of character that can't be taught or given. It has to be forged through adversity." Emma's transformation took longer but proved even more significant. Working at TechFlow forced her to develop skills she'd never needed while being protected by family money and influence. She struggled initially, making mistakes and facing consequences that would have sent the old Emma into emotional collapse. But gradually, she began to discover capabilities that had been suppressed by years of low expectations and constant rescue. She showed natural talent for client relations and creative problem-solving skills that had been overshadowed by academic struggles and emotional instability. "I understand now why you succeeded," Emma told me during a coffee meeting 2 years after joining the company. "It wasn't just intelligence or determination. You learned to handle disappointment without falling apart, and you built self-worth from achievement rather than other people's opinions. I never developed those skills because I never had to." 5 years later, Emma managed TechFlow's client services division for the Western region, earning respect through competence rather than charm. She'd married a fellow employee, David Rodriguez, a relationship built on mutual goals and shared values, rather than the impulsive attraction that had characterized her previous romantic choices. My own family expanded when Sarah gave birth to our son Jacob, named for the uncle he would never meet, but whose legacy would guide his upbringing. We raised him with love balanced by appropriate challenges, encouragement tempered with honest feedback, and support that fostered independence rather than dependence. The story of my family's dysfunction and eventual healing became a case study in Dr. Chen's research on narcissistic family systems and recovery. She often used our experience to illustrate how even severely damaged relationships could be repaired when all parties committed to honest self-examination and sustained change. The Barrett family represents hope for healing without minimizing the real damage that dysfunctional patterns create. Dr. Chen wrote in her published research, "Recovery required acknowledging painful truths, accepting responsibility for harmful choices, and rebuilding trust through consistent actions rather than empty promises." Looking back now, I understand that my parents' cruelest gift was forcing me to develop strength I never would have discovered with their support. Their rejection created resilience, their dismissal fostered determination, and their favoritism toward Emma taught me the difference between unconditional love and enabling dysfunction. The people who doubt your potential often do so because they fear your success will expose their own limitations. Building yourself despite their rejection isn't just personal victory, it's the foundation for choosing mercy from strength rather than bitterness from pain. True potential isn't inherited or granted by others. It's forged in the crucible of adversity and proven through persistent effort despite discouragement. My father was wrong about many things, but his final insight proved profound character is revealed not by natural gifts, but by how we respond when life tests our determination. The greatest revenge against those who underestimate you isn't proving them wrong through success, but rising high enough to offer forgiveness when they finally recognize their mistakes. The boy they sent away for lacking potential had become a man capable of saving them from consequences of their own poor judgment. That transformation represented not just professional achievement, but personal growth that transcended the limitations others had tried to impose on my future. Success tastes sweetest when you've earned it entirely through your own efforts, then use it to create opportunities for others who face the same doubts and dismissal you once endured. Have you ever been underestimated by people who were supposed to believe in you most? How did you find the strength to keep pursuing your dreams when your own family didn't support them? Share your story in the comments below, because sometimes knowing we're not alone in facing these challenges makes all the difference. If this story reminded you that your potential isn't defined by other people's limitations, please hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about overcoming adversity and building success against all odds. And don't forget to share this with someone who needs to hear that their dreams matter, even when the people closest to them can't see their worth. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember that your potential is waiting to be proven, not given. Until next time, keep believing in yourself, even when others won't.